How many of you saw that? If someone says you're crazy, you should say, thank you. If someone says you're not crazy, that means you're like them. Some people were asking for some worksheets from other workshops. You can put it in the book too. Devotees are crazy, right? Hare Krishna. Yes? You crazy? By material standards? We're a little crazy by material standards because we're not interested in so many material things. So if someone says you're crazy, in a sense it's a compliment. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama. You know, we were talking the other day about how we'll always be, no matter how advanced we are, there'll always be room for improvement. Remember? And you remember that verse in the Gita where Krishna says, better do your work imperfectly, and every endeavor is covered by some sort of fault. So, it's kind of a redefinition of perfection. Because Krishna is saying every endeavor is covered by fault. So, but then you define perfection not in terms of the result, but in terms of the consciousness and the effort. So that's very important. I want to read something about that. I actually think we read this before. But I think it's maybe more relevant after we've had some classes. This is from 421.33. The question may be raised that since the Lord is supposed to be worshipped by great demigods like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and others, how can an ordinary human being on this planet serve him? Good question, right? Because there's so many prayers. You're worshipped by Brahma. You're worshipped by Shiva. You're worshipped by this one, that one. So then, what about little old me? What right do I have to worship Krishna? What qualification do I have? This is clearly explained by Prithu Maharaj, by the use of the word yatadikara, according to one's ability. So it's very important. Like, all of us are different. Not just male, female, but every one of us is different. We have different abilities. And some of us are really good at certain things. And we're so good at it, we don't even... Sometimes you're so good at something, you don't even know you're good at it because it comes so naturally to you. Did you know that? Sometimes you're so good at something, you don't even know you're good at it. You think everybody can do it. Isn't it? And sometimes you do something and someone says, that's great, you're so good, and you don't believe them. You just think, what was so great about that? But what the person means is, I can't do that. So because I can't do it, I think it's great. Right? If someone's a really good writer, you're not a good writer. Sometimes it's hard to figure out, how could anybody write like that? Or, you know, when I was young, you remember Jimi Hendrix, the one who destroyed himself by removing Krishna's picture from the universal form and putting his own on his album. But Jimi Hendrix was kind of like an icon of guitarists in the 60s. And so people would watch him. They couldn't, he was so good they couldn't figure out how to play. But like today, everybody probably might figure it out. Yeah. But he was innovative. So when you don't understand something or you can't do it, then you think, this is fantastic. But for him, wasn't that hard. He actually played guitar with his teeth instead of using, well, he was left-handed. Instead of playing with a pick, sometimes he would just play with his teeth because he was so good. You know. Anyway, don't dream about Jimi Hendrix tonight. Excuse me for bringing it up, but it was just an example. But he probably wasn't thinking. He probably played like that when he was a little kid. So, there's always going to be somebody that does something better than you, guaranteed. 100%. You don't get neurotic over it. There's going to be somebody better. So this is nice what Prabhupada's saying. This is explained by Prita Maharaj by the use of the word yatha adhikara, according to one's ability. Adhikar, a qualification. Natural qualification or ability. So, what's being said is, you could do your best, and it may not be that great. And I could just kind of not try that hard, and it may be better than what you did. 100 rupee fine in your phone goes up. So the next sentence. If one sincerely executes his occupational duty, that will be sufficient. That's another way of saying, you're given a service, or according to Varnashram, you have an ashram, you have a varna, and then you do your best. And whatever that best is, as long as you do your best, that's sufficient. That's what more can Krishna expect of you? Now, the problem is, and it's not necessarily a bad problem, always, we expect more from ourselves. So you could say, well, that's good, you should expect more from yourself. Yeah, it could be good. But there may be no more to expect from yourself. You may hit like the limit. It's just, I can't do any better. It's just, I did my best. And so, what I read into this purport is that if you know you're doing your best, then you should be satisfied. Whatever the result is, you should be satisfied. Well, I've done my best. I tried according to the way my abilities, the mind I have, the intelligence I have, the attitudes I have, and so forth. This is the best I can do right now. And if you know you've tried your best, then you should be satisfied. Like, what did Krishna tell the gopis? I can't repay you, so just be satisfied with your own bhakti. So it's something like that. Be satisfied with your effort. One does not need to become like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva Indra, Lord Chaitanya or Ramanujacharya, whose capabilities are certainly far above ours. There's a purport. I think I told this last week or the week before. We remember the pastime of Lord Nityananda saving Jagai and Madhai. So Jagai and Madhai were not easy to save. They weren't interested, and you were basically risking your life in trying to preach to them. They didn't like you, they'd just kill you. And they were very sinful. So in that purport, as we know, Lord Nityananda saved them, but in that purport, Prabhupada said, you can't try to save someone that you're not capable of saving, because you'll end up falling. You'll end up, so-called sprains. You'll tear a muscle trying to save someone. You're not capable of it. So you do what you're capable of to the best of your ability, and you make the effort. Now, I once asked a godbrother who I felt knew Prabhupada really well, I said, what do you think Prabhupada was thinking when he came to America? Do you think he was thinking, oh, we've got this wrapped up, it's a piece of cake, I know exactly what's going to happen, Lord Chaitanya's mercy, my Guru Maharaj's mercy, everything's going to happen, the hippies will come, they'll line up, we'll open temples, books. And you might say, but Prabhupada made that prediction, so it seemed. But it seemed he was thinking like that. But if you read his prayers on the Jaladutta, it does not seem like he was thinking like that. It seemed like he had doubts that he had the potency to get to the heart of people. So really, when you read the Jaladutta prayer, you really get this mood that's being described here, that I'm just going to try, and I don't know. I don't know the result. And you may know that Prabhupada used to go to the docks. Because the first year it was not successful. He used to go to the docks and said, when's the next boat back to India coming? And he'd come often, and one day the man at the dock said, you're never going to go back, why are you checking? He said, I know I won't, but I'm just checking anyway. So there was that sense that maybe it's not going to work. And I'm not in control. And all I can do is pray and make the effort. And of course we know what happened, but still, we should understand, in that period of time, it wasn't that Prabhupada was feeling he was a failure, he just didn't know if it was going to work. But he didn't give up. And he wasn't depressed, thinking I'm a failure. Do you know, have you ever heard this? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, let's say you're doing a program, like let's say tonight we're doing this program and I'm the only one here. So he said, if nobody comes, you can preach to the four walls. Have you ever heard that? Yeah. You can preach so it's not just external success. And then there's that program they did in London. They rented a theater. Some prestigious place, I forget the name of it. And like hardly anybody came. It was just like a handful. And they made all this prasadam, and they were so upset because they felt they failed Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was not upset. And you know what he said? He said, no, Narada Muni came, Lord Brahma came. And then you know what he said? He said, you should have two asanas for Lord Brahma and Narada Muni because they'll always come to these programs. Did you know that? He said you should have two asanas. Did you know that? Yeah. Then Prabhupada got a letter from a brahmachari in India, and he was trying to recruit this brahmachari. And then this brahmachari spoke to his spiritual master, and his spiritual master didn't think that Prabhupada would be successful. So basically he wrote him a letter and said, you know, what you're doing is kind of a waste. It's never going to happen. Then Prabhupada wrote a letter back, very interesting letter. He said, it actually doesn't matter what happens. It just matters that we're in the field fighting. Like we're here, it's the order of the Guru. We're doing what he asked. And whether we're successful or not is not the issue. The issue is the effort. Isn't that nice? And I have found one of the best instructions for anyone on book distribution, specifically those who have a hard time on book distribution, or those who have a hard time just getting out the door, and once they get out the door, staying out the door, is just be attached to the effort, not the result. Just be attached to approaching people. Just that's your service to give people an opportunity. You try your best, of course, but be attached to the effort of showing people the books. And be happy with that effort. And then it's very easy because then it doesn't matter if they buy a book or not. I'll just show them, and if they touch the book, they've touched Krishna. They've seen the picture. Excuse me, sir. You ever seen God before? What he looks like? Here, look right here. That's him. Kind of fun to see their reaction. Yeah. Whatever. So even that's all you do, but you've made the effort. And you'll come back. You'll feel somewhat satisfied. Oh, I made the effort. I did my best. So Prabhupada said, in this letter, Prabhupada said, we are soldiers in the field. And what's the motto of the soldier? Who knows the motto of the soldier? There's some motto in the U.S. Marines. I forget how it goes. Ours is not to question why. Who knows that? We don't have any Americans. Ours is not to question why. Ours is only something like to live or die. Like fight to. It's our duty, so we don't question, we just do it. And we might live, we might die, but we do it. And that's the success. Not that you achieved external success necessarily, but that you tried. And so that was definitely Prabhupada's mood in the beginning. And we all know in the beginning that Prabhupada was not successful for the first year, not much tangible success. But Prabhupada said, I never felt that my Guru Maharaj was not with me. He said, I always felt that he was there. He was looking at what I was doing. So even though the success wasn't there, he still felt his Guru Maharaj was there because he was executing the order, and that's how he felt close. This is his order, I'm doing it. So could you imagine how Prabhupada would have felt if he never came to America? Having gotten that order, I think when he was 23 years old. 22. Could you imagine he never went to America? He would have felt so much worse than just coming to America and failing, living wherever and going through that austerity. Because at least he would have said, I tried to execute the order of my Guru. So that's the mood, that's important. And that helps us get over this, I need to be perfect, or I'm not good enough, or whatever you think. We should replace that with, I need to be sincere, and I need to work to the best of my ability. That's all I can do. One does not need to become like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Indra, Lord Chaitanya, Ramanujacharya, whose capabilities are certainly far above ours. Even a Shudra, who is in the lowest stage of life, according to the material qualities, can achieve the same success. Anyone can become successful in devotional service, provided he display no duplicity. So, there are different ways we can define no duplicity. One way is sincere. One way is honest. I'm sincerely trying my best to serve Guru and Krishna for their pleasure, and serve the Vaishnavas for their pleasure. What more can you do than that? That's perfect. And the beautiful thing about Krishna consciousness is Krishna sees what you do, and he sees the good things in you, and he doesn't see the bad. Did you know that? Yeah. Krishna's we like to see the bad in people, because in a perverted way it makes us feel good. But he doesn't like to see the bad. He only likes to see the good. So that's what he sees. So, we see the bad in ourselves. We're thinking, oh, I'm so bad. And Krishna's not seeing that. He's seeing, oh, he's trying, she's trying. Or she has so much devotion. And Prabhupada once said, it's interesting, Prabhupada said that when he would look at his disciples, he would say, you're so sincere that you're teaching me how to be a sincere servant of my spiritual master. So Prabhupada was the same. He just saw what was good. He saw the sincerity. Isn't that interesting? Because I think sometimes we just see what's bad in ourselves, and we don't see the good. And Krishna and Prabhupada see the opposite. That's really interesting. And I would suggest that we should see as they see. And if we don't see as they see, we should. Because they see reality, and we see a reflection. We don't see the way it should be seen. Anyway, it's nice to know. So, when Prabhupada's saying, anyone can be successful provided he displays no duplicity. And so that means, basically, he's sincere. He's not trying to get something from Krishna. He's not trying to get something from the devotees. He's not trying to achieve a better material position through devotional service. He's just honestly trying to become a pure devotee. And that makes Krishna happy. And that's all you can do, is try to become a pure devotee. It is explained here that one must be very frank and open-minded. Amayinaha. To be situated in a lower status of life is not a disqualification for success in devotional service. Should I read that again? Tattoo this sentence to your brain or your heart. To be situated in a lower status of life is not a disqualification for success in devotional service. The only qualification is, we have a drum. The only qualification is, whatever his position, he must be open, frank. Frank means honest. Open also means honest, not pretending, not trying to get something, and free from reservations. That means don't hesitate. Prabhupada says something, don't hesitate. Krishna says something, don't hesitate. Just surrender to me. Let me think about it. No, don't hesitate. That's the qualification. Which means, if you think about this, that means the qualification is up to us. There's no prerequisite qualification. You know, think of it like there's some prestigious university, and they don't require that you have some kind of amazing grade point average. They just require that you would earnestly try. Will you come to class every day? Will you do your homework? Will you try your best? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. But I have bad grades. Doesn't matter. As long as you're willing to try, we'll let you in. That's what's being said here. You agree? The only qualification is whether one is whether he's a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, that doesn't matter. He must be open, frank, and free from reservation. Isn't that nice? Because basically it's saying you create the qualification. You don't have to have any qualification materially because you create the qualification. Just be open, frank, and free from reservation. And to help us remember that, just be sincere. Sincerely try. That's it. Is that good to know? Did any of you ever know this purport existed? Isn't it interesting? I mean, I'm putting it in the context of this consciousness we sometimes have where we feel disqualified. Then, by performing his particular occupational duty under the guidance of a proper spiritual master, he can achieve the highest success in life, as confirmed by the Lord himself. You made it? Who made it?
Alexander.
What?
Alexander.
What's in it?
Это компот.
Compot. Whoa. Fruit. Fruit.
Яблочный компот и мед.
Apple.
Apples and honey. Boiled.
It's really good. It does not matter whether one is a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, or a degraded person. If one engages himself seriously in devotional service, working with body, mind, and intelligence, he is sure to be successful in going back home, back to Godhead. There you have it, everyone. So here in this purport, Prabhupada has given you every reason to be hopeful and no reason not to be. Right? Because you can't complain that you have a disqualification, because you create your own qualification. You understand? Yes? Annabelle, you understand?
Not sure.
Think of the example of the university. No qualification, passed grades. Only qualification, will you go to class? Will you do the homework? Will you make the effort? There's no, so you give yourself the qualification. Or the disqualification. There's no free, you can't say, I'm so disqualified. No, because they're not asking for any qualification, other than you go to class and do the homework and make the effort. So that's what I mean, is you create the qualifications. In that moment, there's nothing behind you that disqualifies you. There's more in here? We should distribute this after. We should get some cups and distribute this. This is like, this is good. This is really good. Does not matter whether one is a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, or degraded. So, what does this mean? This is a nice example. Let's look at it a little more carefully. Prabhupada is saying, whatever you were or are up to this point doesn't matter. Because from this point on, if you just engage in devotional service sincerely, that's your qualification. If you honestly try to please Krishna, that's your qualification. There's no material qualification. You don't have to be smart, you don't have to be perfect, you don't have to be born a devotee. You just have to be sincere. And I think one of the biggest proofs of this is that Prabhupada was willing to initiate practically anybody who, maybe by our standards, looking in retrospect, we would think, why did he initiate them? They weren't qualified. He initiated them not because they weren't qualified, but because they were sincere. Because that's what he was looking at as the qualification. He wasn't looking at the past. He was looking at, are you sincere? Will you chant 16 rounds? Will you follow the principles? Yes, okay. Okay, if you'll do that, okay. Right?
Right.
And everything in the past didn't really matter. As long as you do this, that's the qualification. And you're not disqualified by what you've done in the past. This is an important point. You're not disqualified by what you've done in the past. You're only disqualified by not being sincere in the present. That's an important statement. Should I say it again? You're not disqualified by what you've done in the past. You're only disqualified by not being sincere in the present. So we qualify ourselves or we disqualify ourselves by our attitude, by our sincerity, by our honesty, by our lack of duplicity. That's how we qualify ourselves. Not by our past piety, Right now. Every day you qualify yourself by your sincerity. And it's pretty much guaranteed that... You put the fan on? It's kind of hot in here. Is it hot in here?
Yes.
You want to put the fan on? Is that possible? It's definitely obvious that most of us, from the point of view of religiosity and spirituality, although we may be interested in it, we don't have such a good past. Yes? You agree? Maybe you went to church. Maybe you did this and that. But overall, you could say it's not perfect. Not ideal. So the good news is it doesn't matter. Okay, so now there's another verse. This is nice. That doesn't work, huh? Don't blow it on me. Blow it on them. Because I'll get a sore throat if you blow it on me.
Yes. This is good.
Blow it this way.
Yeah, Prabhu. Haribol.
He understood.
Hello. Я понял, да. Я понял, я. Понял.
Wow. How is it so hot in here? It's humid. It's not really hot, it's humid. Okay. So this is from the Bhagavatam 8:22-23. This is about Bali Maharaj. By offering even water. Depends what country you're in. Water. By offering even water, newly grown grass, or flower buds at your lotus feet. These are very simple things. Water, grass. You can offer grass. Kusha grass is auspicious. Or flower buds at your lotus feet. Those who maintain no mental duplicity. But what is no mental duplicity? The same thing. They're not trying to get something from Krishna, be it material or material fame. They're just serving sincerely. So that's no mental duplicity. Those who may know no mental duplicity can achieve the most exalted position within the spiritual world. This Bali Maharaj, without duplicity, has now offered everything in the three worlds. How then can he deserve to suffer from arrest? When he was arrested, and everyone was wondering, why did he get arrested? He gave everything. Doesn't seem fair. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is so kind that if an unsophisticated person with devotion and without duplicity offers at the lotus feet of the Lord a little water, a flower, a fruit, or a leaf, the Lord accepts it. Then the devotee is promoted to Vaikuntha, the spiritual world. Brahma drew the Lord's attention to this subject and requested that he release Bali Maharaj, who was suffering, being bound by the ropes of Varuna, and who had already given everything, including the three worlds, whatever he possessed. So Brahma came, and basically he was saying, look at, Bali has done what you say is the qualification. He, without duplicity, gave everything. And he didn't ask for anything back. He said, he didn't say, okay, I'll give you 3 steps of land, but give me, you know, a few acres here or there. He gave everything. So basically, Brahma's saying, this is the qualification for going back to Godhead. And so why are you arresting him? So this is one example of how a devotee who purely served Krishna became liberated. Can I read something else? Okay.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
We'll see you.
See you in Poland.
Thank you.
We'll see you in Poland
We
or
miss you.
somewhere.
Thank you,
Thank you, everyone.
We're not going to have any questions anymore. I don't know.
I'm going to send you on.
You can change your name. You can change your Facebook name to Butt Baby. Butt Baby.
Butt Baby.
Barka. Have a good flight, if there is such a thing. I haven't found one yet. But everyone says, did you have a good flight? It's like, yeah, if you like being a sardine, that's great. Is there anything such as a good flight?
First class is okay.
Unless you go first class. What?
First class is okay.
First class is a good flight. Yes. Or your own plane. That's a good flight. This is from a lecture. Anyone who's engaged in my Prabhupada's quoted. Anyone who is engaged in my devotional service without any adulteration, pure devotion, it's my duty to serve Krishna. Not that I should think I am serving Krishna with a motive. As soon as I get the opportunity, I shall utilize. Everyone, on the count of 3, wake up. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 10. 1, 2, 3. And 12. I don't know how to do it. How do you do it in Russian? What? Раз? Раз, два? Три. Раз, два, три. Three? I will not be Russian in this life. I don't have the samskars. Okay, so the beautiful thing about this verse, this is from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and it's a definition of pure devotional service. And pay attention. The word that's used, or the word that Prabhupada uses, is not that you serve without desire, you serve without motive. So you think, well, what's the difference between motive and desire? It seems like they're the same thing, but actually they're different. What I desire does not have to become my motive. So let's say, I desire to get something from you. But I know I should serve you without that desire. So even though I have the desire to get something from you, I'm going to control that, I'm going to serve you, and my motive is only going to be to make you happy. Even though I still want to get something from you, but I'm not going to be motivated by that. That's not the reason I'm serving you. So I may have the desire, even I'm serving you, I may have the desire, But I'm not going to allow that to become what inspires me to serve you. So when we say motive is, what's your inspiration? Why are you doing it? So you have to ask yourself when you're serving, why am I doing that? And if you're doing it to please Krishna, you can have a million desires. I want this, I want that, I want to be number one, I want to be world famous, I want to be rich, I want to be known as the best devotee, I want to get the Mahaprasadam every day, whatever it is, I want to do this service. Well, that may not be so bad, but something that is not pure, and you're full of all these desires, but when you come to serve Krishna, you don't let those desires become the reason you serve. You control those desires. And then you serve because Krishna wants you to do that. That becomes your motive. That's a definition of pure devotional service. And the beauty of this definition is that you can do pure devotional service when you're not a pure devotee. That's interesting, isn't it? Because it seems to be a contradiction. How could you do pure devotional service if you're not a pure devotee? It seems a contradiction. But this definition is, it's just your motive has to be pure. Why am I doing this? Why am I serving prasadam? Why am I cleaning the temple? Why am I going out on Sankirtan? Why have I become the temple president? Why anything? Because I want to please Krishna. I want to please Prabhupada. I want to please the devotees. I want to please my spiritual master. That's what. I have so many desires. But those desires don't become my motive for doing the service. That's pure devotional service. So you can do pure devotional service even before you're a pure devotee. That's good news, isn't it? So sometimes we say we're practicing pure devotees because we're doing what pure devotees should do. Pure devotees not should do, what pure devotees do, with the motive to be pure. One of the best stories that I ever heard, and you should remember this story because when you're an older devotee, you're going to have all kinds of problems when you're an older devotee if you stay in ISKCON. You want to know why? Because people will see you and go, oh my God, there's Annabelle. Well, your name will be something else. There's Annapurna. She's been a devotee for 50 years. And they're going up to you. You're such a great devotee. And you'll be thinking, you're crazy, but you can't tell them that. So here's the story that will help you. I tell everybody this. If you stay in ISKCON long enough, by default, you'll become an older devotee. Because the ones older than you will not be alive. You know, that's the way it works, right? They gradually fall off the plank, and then you're there. You go, you've been a devotee since you were 24, now you're 75, oh my God. And you met Mahatma Prabhu? Oh, wow. And you're like, you don't even think like this now. No, I'm just joking. No, listen, you met Radhanath Swami? Oh my God, what was he like? Tell me about him. So, Prabhupada was doing an initiation, and there were many, many, many devotees being initiated, and Prabhupada would chant on everyone's beads, and there were so many devotees that Prabhupada asked one of the sannyasis to chant on the beads. So, the sannyasi was thinking that I'm chanting on the beads of my god brothers and god sisters. You know, I don't want to like contaminate the beads. This just doesn't seem right. I don't feel pure enough. So, said, Prabhupada, I don't feel that my chanting is pure enough to chant on the beads. And Prabhupada said, my order is pure. And if you follow my pure order, then your chanting is pure. Isn't that interesting? My order is pure. If you follow my order, then your chanting will be pure. He's chanting because Prabhupada ordered him to do it, and therefore, because he's following the order, he's pure. So when you're an older devotee, you may be asked to do things that you feel you're not qualified to do, or people may respect you in a way you feel you're not qualified to be respected. But if you're acting on the order of Prabhupada, if you're acting on higher authority, their order is pure. And so you execute that order, then your action is pure. And then you can make other people pure. So it's like the electrical current is just coming through. I may not be pure, the current's pure. If I can take that current and I can pass it on, then you get the pure current. Because the current is pure. I just have to pass it on by following the order of superiors. Isn't that nice? Whenever you're in a position you think you're not qualified for, just remember the order is pure. You execute that order, then the action is pure. Right? I think it was 1968. Prabhupada told his disciples, you all have to become spiritual masters. Do you imagine? 1968, the movement was 3 years old. Average devotee must have been 19. Average devotee probably had not been in the movement more than a year. And now Prabhupada says you have to become guru. Inconceivable. Unimaginable. And then the unimaginable happened, and Prabhupada left, and then they had to be guru. And how do you do that? It's like when Prabhupada came, before he came to America, he came here to Mayapur, and he went to a temple called, it's the home of Nandanacharya. He went to the temple. Sometimes in the morning walk we go there. And he was just crying. And the Pujari knew him and said, why are you crying? He said, because my spiritual master has given me an order. He's given me a mission. It's impossible to execute. He's given me an impossible mission. And Prabhupada was praying for the power to do it. But the order was pure, and Prabhupada wanted to execute the order. So it goes back to the original, we went full circle, it goes back to the original point. If you execute the order to the best of your ability, the order is pure. You may or may not be pure, but your sincerity is there. And it's pure, and it has its effect. And even though you're not a pure devotee, you're engaged in pure devotional service. And if this were not true, if you don't believe me, we have evidence for this. And what's the evidence? You're all here. The evidence is that Prabhupada came to America and no one knew about Krishna. And some people came, they wanted to be devotees, and he said, do this, do this, do this. And they did it. And they weren't very pure. But they did what he said. And look what happened. Now everywhere you go, they're devotees. Right? Isn't that amazing? What was he starting with? Not much. Not much, but people who would listen to him. Because, you know, one thing that Prabhupada praised his disciples for was that they would do whatever he asked. And he knew because they were willing to give their life to the Sankirtan movement and follow his order, that this movement would be successful. Because they were going all around the world, sacrificing their lives and doing austerities. And he knew, if they'll do that, I will give them the order. If they follow the order, even though they're not very Krishna conscious, they'll be successful. And so this movement is only successful because you had devotees that would follow the pure order sincerely. That's all. They weren't advanced. They were not advanced. They couldn't be that advanced. Maybe in the last life, but in this life, not so advanced. You agree? Raise your hand if you agree. How many in favor? How many opposed? How many abstained? I was just in a meeting for 4 years. You ever wonder how this could start with a bunch of hippies who knew nothing. You ever think about that? You just got the answer tonight. Because the order was pure, and they executed the order without duplicity. They were not qualified. That became their qualification. And that's why they were successful. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So now, we've left 15 minutes for questions. Yes?
You talk about Bali Maharaj.
Yes.
It's so interesting, this chapter, the Srimad Bhagavatam. I was thinking the same, no? Because Bali Maharaj gave everything, no? Without thinking nothing for himself. And you told that Krishna is only saying your good qualities. He don't say you. But I can understand also why, no? Why they put like completely
Tied him up?
ropes and
Yeah. The reason...
humiliation. No?
Yeah, well, okay. It's a good question. He's asking why... If Bali Maharaj was so surrendered, why did he get tied up? It didn't seem fair. Like I was saying in this morning's class, Krishna does a lot of things, not a lot of things, but he does things sometimes that from our perspective just don't seem fair. Because he wanted to glorify Bali, because Bali didn't complain. I mean, look at this. Somebody comes to your house and you say, take everything. Anything you want, take it. They clean your house out. They take everything. Before they leave, they tie you up. And you don't say anything. Hare Krishna. So that's what happened. He gave everything and it was tied up, but it was to glorify him. And Prabhupada said that Krishna took everything away from me, because when Prabhupada started, left his family, he had very little. And when he came to America, as we know, he had very little. And Prabhupada said, but when Krishna took everything away, he wanted to see what I would do. It's like, okay, you have nothing, what will you do? Okay, now you have nothing, you pass the test, I give you everything. And that's exactly what happened with Bali. Krishna took everything away, tied him up, Bali accepted it, he didn't complain. Why are you tying me up? I gave you everything, what's wrong with you? It's not fair. Give me my stuff back, I don't want you to have it. You know, it wasn't like that at all. So when he accepted everything, to Krishna that was like, look at my devotee. Now we can put him in the Bhagavatam and he can be an example for everybody. Look at my devotee. He's amazing. Right? So he glorified him. And then when he passed the test, he said, okay, you can have your own planet and I'll be your doorkeeper. So it was like, you know, it was just more dramatic. Yes?
These people must have given me 100,000 orders.
Yes.
I'm following some, and some I'm not able. So what is my position? Do I do some progress?
Well, I think there's two things. Maybe it's a similar answer. I think one thing to meditate on is Prabhupada's example of getting that order when he was very young. And he couldn't execute it. He didn't come to America till he was 65, and I think he got the order when he was 23, so it was 42 years later he was able to execute it. And sometimes Prabhupada would say, I should have done it right away. So better late than never. So what's interesting is that he wanted to do it, but he couldn't. At least externally at that point, and maybe internally also, he couldn't do it. But it was his desire. And Prabhupada also writes that in the Bhagavatam. That sometimes, in the Gita, that sometimes you can't do it, but you want to do it, but you can't. But there's a principle there. So you try to do your best. So sometimes with the instruction you have to understand, well, what's the principle here? Maybe I can't do the exact thing, but what's the principle? Like, I can't go on book distribution. What's the principle? It's to make people Krishna conscious. Well, maybe I could help organize it. Maybe I could cook for the Sankirtan. All right, I should be renounced. I can't, so I get married. So, but what's the principle? Principle is be Krishna conscious, right? But what's the whole point of the instruction? To be Krishna conscious. So, if you follow the instruction, you're not Krishna conscious, no point. So you try to work within the principles, and then as you progress in spiritual life, you may be more able to follow instructions you couldn't follow when you were younger. Or maybe those instructions are inappropriate to your particular condition at that time, your age, your material situation, or your advancement. So that's possible. But if you're willing to try to follow at least the spirit of the principle, like even when you get married, the principle is to live simply and live a fairly detached life, at least by material standards. So, someone may say, oh, you're getting married, there's attachments and so forth. But the point is, okay, I need to be married, but let's do it still in a simple way. So the principle is live simply, still somewhat detached. As detached as healthy. And then the orders you can't execute, then you can put them on the back burner and hope to someday execute. And there may be orders that are impossible due to our ability and whatever. Like Bhaktisiddhanta asked every one of his disciples to preach in the West. So it's not that because they didn't do it, their life is a total failure. They did so many things. So you do your best. And keep doing your best and get better. Sometimes, not every instruction is meant for everybody. So there may be 100 or what did you say, 100,000 instructions, but they may not all be meant for us. Yes?
You were talking about the dogs. You regularly go and check once a month about National America. Yesterday or the day before, you were talking about those expressions of humility, and are those real or are they setting examples? So would you say, and you said yes, and those, so would you say the same thing applies to Prabhupada? Kind of being on the mental platform, quote unquote, going to the dock and like literally almost going back to India and turning the whole thing out the window and yet still sticking to it? Is it the same sort of principle?
It's a hard question to answer because I have to enter into Prabhupada's heart and mind. And I was just reading about this the other day. It was definitely hard for Prabhupada in the beginning. And I don't know if you're aware of that lecture, but early on he was saying, I'm missing my Vrindavan. You know that lecture? So I'm thinking of Vrindavan, I'm missing it. So it was definitely, he was missing Vrindavan. It was definitely difficult. And so, I mean, someone could say he was just going there just to pacify his mind. That there was a boat going back, just in case I could get on it, But the man said, Swamiji, you're never going to go. And he said, I know. So it could have just been like, all right, if I need it, it's there, just to make sure. It was hard. And I think that's important because, otherwise we think, well, Prabhupada's a pure devotee, so it was easy. He's not affected, he's transcendental. And then we said yesterday, Prabhupada said, no, it was difficult. If anyone has a reason to be discouraged, I do. It was, it's difficult, but of course he's Krishna conscious, so he can deal with it. But the difficulties are difficulties, that's for sure. So that's kind of my understanding. It was difficult. It was just kind of giving him some peace of mind. Well, if it doesn't work out, when's the next boat? Or like some disaster comes, or all the 4 devotees that I have just decide to, mutiny against me. There's nothing. So this was my discussion with some devotees who knew Prabhupada well, is that definitely he had doubts about the success, and it was difficult. And, there is that human side. And I think it's good. And as far as an exhibition of humility, but at that time there was no one to exhibit it to, because he wasn't publicly saying, I'm going to the gods. It was just a private thing. That's the way I see it. I mean, I've been in similar situations in my preaching where it was so difficult. I just wanted to go back home. And I was in one situation, probably at that point, up to that point in my devotional service, this was the most difficult situation. I was out of America, a far away country. And it was really hard. So many difficult things would happen. And the devotee I was in charge, I was the president, but he was the regional secretary, and he said, read the Prabhupada Lilamrita. So I read about all the difficulties Prabhupada went through, and then I stayed. I said, because relative to what Prabhupada went through, what I was going through was not so much. So I think it's nice to see that Prabhupada did struggle. And he said he struggled. He said it was difficult. So if he said it, we should accept it. There's this really nice story of Abhimanyu. Abhimanyu got into the phalanx. He got in, but he couldn't get out, and so they killed him. He was 16. So Abhimanyu was Arjuna's son. So right in the middle of the battlefield, you lose your son. That's very discouraging, isn't it? And Arjuna was lamenting. And so some man told Prabhupada, he said, how could Arjuna be a pure devotee? Because he's lamenting, and pure devotees don't lament. Prabhupada said it's natural that he would lament, because his son just died. But the proof that he's a pure devotee is that he didn't stop fighting. I think you could say the same thing about Prabhupada. All right, he was feeling separation from Vrindavan, and New York, and the winter, and a few hippies, and living in this apartment, that apartment. That was difficult. No money, but he didn't give up. So I like to see it that way. I mean, maybe other devotees would see it differently, but I like to see it that way. That it was difficult, but because he's Krishna conscious, he could withstand the difficulties. Feel close to his guru, feel close to the order of his guru. And, I've often said, and it's really a very interesting thought, that if that original group of people didn't come and become devotees, there may be no Hare Krishna movement, because Prabhupada needed devotees to spread it. He couldn't do it alone. He had to have people that would go out and meet other people. He had to have people that were actually doing it, so that other people could see that you could do it. Otherwise, it was just Prabhupada. Everybody would think, well, you can't do it, only he can do it. So you can imagine how hard it was to start from zero, and there's nobody doing it but you, and you're a pure devotee, and nobody's going to relate to you. But when you do it, and you do it, and you do it, oh, you're doing it, I could do it. That's how it started. That's just my feeling. And a lot of devotees have said that it's not necessarily that we should think Prabhupada doesn't have these emotions or these struggles or things that are difficult. Because he talks about difficulties, right? Talks about being tolerated. So Prabhupada had to tolerate us. Today I was just reading before I came over a story about Prabhupada's sister. She would always follow him around everywhere. Sometimes he's a sannyasi, It's like, go away. And then he would say, she thinks I'm her brother. So she has this relationship. She said, I took sannyas so I could be free from that. So it bothered him. It was a problem sometimes. His son came. He told his son, he said, I was a very bad husband. Your mother was very good, but I wasn't a good husband. And I regret that, and I tell her I apologize and things like that. So there was that side. We're in the world, and these things happen. But it never deterred Prabhupada. When the first devotees left, Prabhupada didn't, I believe he never thought anybody would leave. He was really upset. It was like losing his children. It's really hard. He would tell the devotees, go and get them. They'd come back, he'd embrace them. So all these emotions. So I don't think we should think he didn't have them. Or that it wasn't difficult. It was. So the glory of Prabhupada is he didn't give up. And your lives will be difficult also. Yes? And the sign of your bhakti is you don't give up during the difficulty. No matter what happens, you keep going. That's your glory. That's your pure bhakti. You may not be pure, but that's your pure bhakti. That's what Prabhupada said about Arjuna. That's the sign he's a pure devotee. He never gave up his service, no matter how difficult it was. We've all been in difficult situations where we just want to give up. You ever want to give up? I can't deal with this, it's too much. Ah! And then we have all these examples of these devotees. And we have Prabhupada's example. He didn't give up. Some of Prabhupada's most trusted leaders, they just left Krishna consciousness. Heads of departments, GBC, sannyasis. It was so difficult for Prabhupada. Devotees didn't get along, they'd fight. Just giving Prabhupada a headache. You must know that Prabhupada said, management gives me a headache. And I can't translate because my mind is disturbed. And then there's this story. I think this answers the question well also. Tamal Krishna Maharaj tells this story. When they were fighting for the land in Juhu, they were being cheated all the time. You ever been cheated? It's really disturbing. It's like, it just gets in you. Somebody cheats you, you don't expect it. The person's selling you land, but he's cheating and he's taking it back and you don't get your money. It's really disturbing. And then you're having to fight it, and then you find out your lawyers are on the other side. They're in cahoots with the other side. It's just, how frustrating. Can you imagine how frustrating that is? So, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was a GBC, and this was like going on every day. He was dealing with this. And so one day, he went to Prabhupada, he said, I am so disturbed, I can't even chant my rounds. And you know what Prabhupada said? You know what Prabhupada said? He said, me too. So, you read in the scripture, Narada Muni, he doesn't, he's not in connection with this world, he doesn't feel things with this world. But Prabhupada definitely was having to tolerate a lot. And of course, we know Prabhupada never gave up. But we shouldn't think that it wasn't hard. Yes, that's my opinion. Yes.
I still have some doubts about this order of spiritual master. For example, spiritual master gave me an order which I was not able to follow. Now it's too late. In the future, it won't be able to do so. What position?
What to do?
What to do? Do I have some hope?
Now, in your current position, you do the best you can. You try to be as Krishna conscious as you can in the present position. That's all you can do. Okay, let's use the example of a sannyasi. Let's say you were a sannyasi. You weren't a sannyasi. But let's say you were a sannyasi. And you decided that this is not going to be possible and you get married. So, okay, now you're married. It's too late. You can't be a sannyasi now. So what do? You try to be as Krishna conscious as you can in Grihastha ashram. That's the best you can do. You do something, you make a mistake, all you can do is try to make amends and do the best you can to go forward. There's nothing else you can do. To do anything less than that, it doesn't make sense. So, I'm a sannyasi, and I fell down, now I'm a grihastha, but I'm definitely not going to be a good grihastha because I used to be a sannyasi, so what's the use? Why try? It doesn't make, I failed, so I'm just going to fail as a grihasta. That wouldn't make sense. Okay, now I'm a grihasta, so maybe that's the best thing for me, so I'll do the best I can. But it's interesting because I'm not aware of any time Prabhupada ever chastised a sannyasi who fell down and ever gave him a dirty look and said, I don't want to see your face. Never, ever, ever. He would say, okay, get married. You've done so much service for me, I can never forget your service. I can never forget what you've done. So, if grihastha life is better, do that. So, Prabhupada was understanding that we're not perfect. So, do your best. That's all you can do. Go forward, do your best. Phones do a lot, but they disturb us. Tape recorders don't. Digital recorders don't sing. Okay.
Maharaj, I want to ask you about the Srimad Bhagavatam. In Canto 5, Parikshit Maharaj was completely confused, no? And he said, I can understand the compassion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, no? With all these hails, and that's it, no?
Mm-hmm.
And after 6, 7, 8, 9, he's talking only about demons, like demons that become devotees, no? And at one point I was thinking, no, like, in your class you say you try to make the best, no? And if you cannot follow something, you must get the best. Okay, my point is, for example, last time I was making Harinam, no? And one devotee told me, you must go because if you want to be sannyas, you need go to some place and like this. And I was thinking, I don't want to be sannyas, but I don't want to be grihastha, but I don't want to be brahmachari. Really, Maharaj, really, not joking. It's like, I'm not interested in nothing of this. I don't like this grihastha life, but I don't like also brahmachari life. And sannyasi, I don't like this, Maharaj. And I was thinking, my Guru Maharaj say, searching the Bhagavatam, your history. And I was thinking, maybe I'm Vitrasura, not like pure devotees like this, no? But maybe I'm demon, no? And that's it, no? I cannot do nothing more, no? And maybe my only job is go to the street and chanting, and I cannot make more. Really, Maharaj, I don't want to be sannyas, really. Really, somebody say, you want to be sannyas? Never. I don't like this. I don't like completely orange. I don't like this. What I can do, Maharaj, really, I feel like, literally, in one point I was thinking, maybe this is not my movement, no? Because, for example, my Guru Maharaj tell me, be grihastha, but I also don't like what I can do. I cannot this ashram. I don't like all time with somebody behind me, and I don't like this, Maharaj. Really, I'm suffering so much. And I was thinking, brahmachari? No, I'm not brahmachari. And in one point I was thinking like, what I can do really, because I'm not interested in these points. I don't like nothing, and maybe this is not one process for me, or I don't like so much. My Guru Maharaj give me this, no, and I chant the Brahman initiation, no, but I don't like so much like be so pure and completely like no passion, not ignorance, only this other stage, I don't know how do you say in English, goodness. I cannot be like this, Maharaj, really. And I feel maybe this is not my process, but also I like 6 hours in the street chanting Hare Krishna and giving books, and that's it, no more. But I don't know what's about this, no? Maybe it's a special person or different. But I don't feel like, I don't want to be a saint, Maharaj, really. What's about, in this point, what I can do, no?
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Keep chanting. Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. There's a story. Prabhupada was driving somewhere. He was seeing some people or stores, or something was very degraded. I forget the detail. He was looking at it, or it could have been that they were telling Prabhupada the things that go on in the city. And Prabhupada, Hari Nam, Hari Nam, Hari Nam, Eva Ki. He just started chanting that verse. Kolo Nasteva. It's like Hari Nam. There's one statement of Prabhupada said something to the effect that, there's so many people who will just never be able to understand Krishna consciousness, but by prasadam, the holy name, they could be liberated. So, just keep chanting. Do your best. But if you're going to distribute the book, you have to live the book.
Yes, I know this so much. I study Srimad Bhagavatam and everything. And I try to go out. I'm with Harinam Brooch, we are traveling around the world making Harinam like 6 hours, 5 hours each day, But I love this. But somehow I don't feel interested for this other stuff.
Okay. Okay. If you're okay, just keep going.
Can you give me the blessings?
I'll think about it. I have to make sure you won't misuse them. I think you're blessing to chant 6 hours a day, and distribute books, Anything else?
I was after how long did Prabhupada actually came back to India?
Came back, I think, in November. No, he first went back because he was sick. He was 67.
After how long?
That was 2 years. But he wasn't planning to go back at that point. He needed to recuperate. And then he went to start preaching. He went back in like November, October, something like that, September 1970. But the story is, the deities in Los Angeles told him to go. Did you know that? Yeah. He said, it's described, there was a conversation he was having with the deities. And he was in Los Angeles and he was building up his Western preaching. And Los Angeles was the headquarters. At that point it was the world headquarters, and he was building up the preaching. And he said, the deities told him to go to India. And he said, I'm building this temple up in Los Angeles. And the deity said, go to India, I'll build you a bigger temple. I'll build you a better temple. That was what we were told. And that happened. He is not, Prabhupada is not an ordinary person. Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki Prabhupada Premanandi. Oh, okay. Hold on. It's time for gifts. We have more gifts for people in the future who are going to do the sacred. Okay, we have gifts for the devotees who help me suffering away in the hot sun, early in the morning, late at night, at the book table. And they get prizes, but Aditi is gone. So, where's Rachakeli? Not here? What do we do? What is it?
Sweet.
What kind?
With white chocolate.
Muesli with white chocolate. Do we have any volunteers for the book table tomorrow? Satya Rupa, Devi Dasi, Pija. Where'd you get this?
7th grade.
Oh. Natalia. Well, Nadia. Annabelle. Krishna Kanta. Tiara. No men. The men are lazy. And we have prasad for everyone else. So if you like prasad, please come forward. I want to thank Vaishnav Seva. Every day he provides prasad. Just manifest out of nowhere. Today it's grapes, dates, and cashews. What a combo.